WNST, Towson Buffs get rocking. We will be doing a viewing party for all things games 3 and 4 next week as the Caps go to Columbus. Stay tuned on our Facebook or Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, everywhere you can follow us, including here at WNST next week as I put those plans together. Also want to give a shout out to the Baltimore Brigade to begin their play on Friday against the Washington Valor. You can get all of that information up at Baltimore Brigade as they begin their second year of indoor football in the Arena League down at the Royal Farms Arena. Learn more at monumentalsports.com. All right, it's a draft season around here as well. Combine, owners' meetings now behind us. Big parts of the free agency in the offseason there. We ramp up for April the 26th as they all gather. Dallas will be the setting, which means I'm staying home. This guy is up in New York doing all things NFL draft for Newsday. He's one of our recurring champions here each and every year to talk all things draft as we get ready for the 16th pick on the clock. We welcome a real draft Nick. Nick Klopsis joins us back from Newsday. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Nick Klopsis. That's Klopsis, as well as at Newsday where he's got a mock draft, a big board, and all of that good stuff. You're a real draft Nick. Your name is Nick, right, Nick?
Yeah, it's actually funny. One of our columnists, Bob Glauber, when I first started doing NFL draft stuff, he actually gave me that nickname as well. He said, and he will never let it go. He'll say, we got a new mock draft from the Draft Nick, so it's kind of become my little brand, so to speak.
You know what I never let go with Glauber is the fact that he's coaching the Georgia Bulldogs this year, and yep. I don't know how he's two-time in the way he does,
I know. Right now, he's putting out mini mocks and recruiting players. He's a busy man.
Yeah, John Harbaugh actually was in the presence of both of them and said it's astonishing. I've known Bob for about 30 years. I've known his brother longer, Bill, who covered the Blast here a billion years ago and was the London bureau chief for the Baltimore Sun a long time ago. But hey, man, we got a draft coming up here, and for the Giants and the Jets up in your part of the world, and I know you always take in the big picture. Man, the quarterbacks are always the story 2 weeks before this thing, especially for the Ravens who pick at 16, where there may be one or two of these guys left, all five of these guys. Maybe they're saying six guys now in the first round. People are, opining that perhaps the Ravens could be in a market for a quarterback. I don't believe that. But the quarterbacks are the story globally when it comes to this draft, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at in the top 10, you could see at least four guys going in the top 10. Five. I usually have five going in the first round. I could see a sixth guy if Mason Rudolph sneaks in there. But, this class is just so top-heavy with quarterbacks. And there's a lot of quarterback-needy teams at the top of the draft. So it fits well. But, with this class and the quarterbacks, I use a phrase that I actually kind of thought up last year. It's kind of like ice cream. It's pick your own flavor. Whatever flavor you like the most, you can have that flavor. It's the same thing with the quarterbacks. There's each quarterback has their own different skill set and brings their own different things to the table. So you can, whatever quarterback system you need for your offense, there's probably that'll be one available if you're picking in that early part of the first round.
Well, you go back to last year, the run happened kind of early and often, and on wide receivers, especially last year. I don't know what's going to happen this year. I would say the run's going to be on quarterbacks this year, that I would be absolutely shocked if any of these kids are still there at 16 when the Ravens are picking, right?
I think of the top four guys, you look at Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, I think they're all going to be gone, early in the top 10. At 16, I think then that's when you're starting to look at, if Lamar Jackson is going to be around. Might be a little bit too early for him or for Mason Rudolph, who I have kind of like as an early second rounder. But that's kind of like where you start thinking about those guys. But the top four guys, if you're the Ravens, you're probably going to have to trade up to get one of those guys if you really are serious about looking at a quarterback.
Well, I don't think they're serious about a quarterback at all, and I think they have a lot of money invested in Flacco, and I don't think there's anybody in the building that's convinced that he can't play anymore, that they can't win without him anymore. He wasn't even on the field when they blew their playoff chance. It was a defense on the field last year where the ball went over the head. But in the case of the Ravens at 16 at this point, I keep seeing McGlinchey. Certainly because of their need for wide receiver, Ridley's going to be a guy that gets talked about. I think DJ Moore's getting talked about more as a climber on the board as well. But for the needs of the Ravens, where it's offensive line or offensive skill position players, in my mind, they'll be able to pick there. But I would not be shocked to see Ozzie Newsome back up if he could back up.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about where they are at 16. You're right. That is that sweet spot for a receiver or for an offensive lineman. I mean, Calvin Ridley just makes the most sense because, he's a receiver and, the Ravens, they added Michael Crabtree, they added John Brown, but you can never have too many offensive playmakers, and Ridley is the best playmaker at wide receiver in this class. I won't say overall because obviously Saquon Barkley, head and shoulders above, everybody offensively in that sense. But, and then there's also, offensive line. That's where you start looking at, maybe a Mike McGlinchey, a Notre Dame prospect, do the Ravens end up picking another Notre Dame left tackle? They took Ronnie Stanley a couple of years ago. Mike McGlinchey has that ability to play both left and right tackle. So maybe they bookend him on the right side. Or, I know they need an interior lineman. It might be a little bit early there, but maybe they trade down and go for a guy like Will Hernandez out of UTEP or Isaiah Wynn out of Georgia. But that 16 spot is really where you start kind of thinking about, okay, here's some good, skill position players and in the trench guys that will be available there. And then, like you said, if you think that Lamar Jackson, if you end up thinking that he could be a long-term guy and you want him to back up for a couple of years behind Joe Flacco, that might be the spot where you start considering him there. But I just think at that point, the value is too great for receiver, for offensive line, that it just makes the most sense to stick around there and get a guy there.
Obviously, the Ravens have struggled with the draft in many respects, quite frankly, over the last 5 years. One of the reasons they haven't been as effective, the failure for Perryman to get on the field, Matt Elam to get on the field, lots of second-rounders from Arthur Brown. They're still trying to get Correa onto the field at this point. And even guys like Brent Urban that, were more long-term project guys, they got him on the field, then they get injured. The Ravens have not had great success with this, but specifically the wide receiver position is something that's haunted Ozzie for, both of the decades that he's been running the franchise. He's the only guy that's ever made a pick. This appears to be the last draft for him. The notion that he would go out swinging on a Ridley, or whether Ridley would still be there at 16 or DJ Moore, but I'm not hearing a whole lot of other wide receivers being thrown around. Now, the tight ends, maybe that would be something a little later on in the first round that they would take a look at, but, you talk about Flacco, at some point, getting him the right weapons, that's the only way this offense is going to work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you have a quarterback, it's almost like the opposite of what the Giants or the Jets rather are right now. They just have a couple of youngish guys. Robbie Anderson, he's had his share of off-field problems, but on the field, he's a dynamic guy. They're getting Quincy and Nunwa back, but they don't have a quarterback. So it's like, who's getting them the ball? Whereas in Baltimore, it's kind of the opposite. They have their quarterback. They have an established guy in Joe Flacco, but who's he going to throw to? I mean, you have Crabtree, who played well in Oakland. You have John Brown, who is a really good speedster, but when he stays healthy, he's had some problems health-wise, with hamstrings, and then he also had, I believe it was a sickle cell problem or some sort of a blood-related problem. So that's a big deal. So if but if that's okay, he's a good deep threat, but you still need another guy. Tight end, it might be a little bit early for that. That's where you're kind of looking at the top of the second round, hope that a Mike Gesicki or a Mark Andrews or the guy from South Dakota State, Dallas Goedert. You hope that they're available. But in terms of other receivers, yeah, I mean, Ridley's there. DJ Moore is definitely a riser, as you mentioned before. He's he really opened eyes at the combine. He's quick. He's fast. He's a good deep threat as well, kind of in that John Brown mold. But he's also, he reminds me a little bit of Stephon Diggs, another former Maryland receiver, and that he's taller, but he's got speed.
Well, he certainly caught the ball with everybody throwing him the ball. I mean, we watch Maryland play here. Not a whole lot to recommend Maryland, especially not in the passing game, especially not from the quarterback. So, to see the productivity he had in an offense that was otherwise, overmatched most of the time, with quarterbacks that were overmatched most of the time, in a league where they're overmatched most of the time. It really speaks volumes to what kind of a receiver he is, and I think that he clearly has interviewed well and done well and performed well to be thought about as a first rounder at this point.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I remember in the first mock draft that I did way back when the playoffs were going out, I did an early mock, and Moore wasn't. He was maybe a mid-second round guy, but he's just steadily climbed up where he's definitely in that mid-first round conversation. He's there with Ridley. He's there with a Cortland Sutton, who's another receiver who could be an option. Sutton, a big, tall, possession, red zone kind of guy. So maybe he kind of balances out the route running ability of Crabtree and the speed of John Brown. Maybe he kind of brings that third dimension where Flacco can look for him, in the red zone, in that, look for him on a fade or look for him in a 50-50 ball situation.
He is Nick Klopsis. He covers all things NFL draft. He is the true draft Nick up at the Newsday Sports group up in New York. You can find him at Newsday Sports as well as at Nick Klopsis. That's Klopsis. He's got a top 100 big board. It's kind of wild, dude. Like, the two guys I've talked the most about are McGlinchey and Ridley because they're showing up the most on mocks for the most part. You've got them literally ranked on your big board at 16 and 17, strangely enough. And, it keeps coming back to these two guys. And I guess the question would be, where would the wild card be with the Ravens if they were to back up? I think it would be a center or it would be a tight end if that was the direction they want to go, and they pass on a wide receiver. I found the curious last year that almost every mock I had O.J. Howard gone by the time they would draft. Not only was he there, they did not select him when they had a need for a tight end. They went with Marlon Humphrey. That was kind of a quiet thing. No one had linked Humphrey to the Ravens, or really a lot of people didn't even have him that high up in the board where the Ravens took him. There's no buyer remorse there at all. I mean, they solved the problem that they would have at the cornerback position, specifically with passing offenses in the AFC. But it is time right now to go out and at least find more weapons. And I love that Crabtree and Brown are guys who've done it in this league and who've done it well at one point and one point recently in the league. But there needs to be some hope and some future around here for someone to be a star as far as touching the football.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at how the NFL is these days. It's definitely a passing league, and you need receivers. Even a team up here like the Giants, they have Odell Beckham, and they have Sterling Shepard, and they have Evan Ingram, but they still need more options. Whether it's a running back like a Saquon Barkley, or they need another receiver. They have Brandon Marshall, but he potentially could be a cap casualty. But so yeah, it's just one instance of you never can have enough targets on offense, and that applies to the Ravens, especially so because of all of the misses that they've had in the past couple of years. Brashad Perriman hasn't been able to stay healthy, and when he has been healthy, he hasn't really been able to produce on the field. And Max Williams, I liked him, when he was coming out a couple of years ago, and he went in the second round, but same thing, he hasn't really showed much of anything from the tight end spot. So, again, tight end might be a position that they trade back for and try to, accumulate more picks while getting one. But that's definitely a position there that they would need as well.
Boy, Quentin Nelson better be going to the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, taking a guard in the top 5, right? Literally.
I mean that's what a lot of people have been saying, that he's. I know Dave Gettleman, the Giants GM up here, he was saying that that if you're picking in the top 5 or in the top 2, the player you're taking better be gold jacket quality, I think was the quote.
Gold jacket quality.
Yeah, for the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, if he's seriously considering Nelson there, he'd have to think that. But Nelson, I mean, when I was watching his tape, I really couldn't find any glaring flaws. I mean, he plays with everything that you're looking for from an offensive guard. He's got the power. He's got the speed, to move out on to pull out. He's got the tenacity. I mean, you see these highlight blocks of him just absolutely crushing defensive linemen. And, he pulls out, and there's one I remember that it just went around, I think it was against Georgia, where it was shared on Twitter a ton of times throughout the scouting, throughout the offseason, where he's just pulling right and just ran into a defender, and the defender just crumpled. He's just a nasty, nasty lineman. So, I mean, with him, he's my number one player, but it's kind of also like a little bit of a 1A, 1B because I also really like Saquon Barkley and think he can be a dominant running back.
Yeah, people think whoever gets him, he's going to touch the ball 100 times right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's got that skill set. I mean, he's a good runner. You know, the one thing that I like to see out of him running the ball is maybe, you know, grinding it up a little bit more. He does tend to kind of bounce it outside and try to look for the home run
but
play.
Catching the ball, I mean, he might catch 80 to 100 balls in addition to running the ball, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. He really is a, you know, people use the term 3-down player when they're talking about running backs. You know, someone who can grind out early yards on first down and then go out and catch it. I think Barkley is a 4-down player because not only can he do that, he's also shown that he can return kicks and punts and take it to the house on any particular touch. So he is definitely a just dynamic player who, you know, whatever offense he ends up in, defensive coordinator is going to have a hard time trying to game plan for him and everything that he does and just his versatile skill set.
Fascinated to see where Baker Mayfield shows up. You got two of those New York teams up there, and you know, I'm not convinced the Giants wouldn't take a quarterback here. They don't talk much about it, but, you know, Barkley's there. There's a lot to pick from, right? But Baker Mayfield, to me, I watched it. I don't get it. I would not feel real comfortable if he were my franchise leader.
I'm actually in a little bit of the opposite camp. I do think that Mayfield can be a quality quarterback. I mean, the height thing definitely could be a concern. But he showed in college that he was able to locate passing lanes, even despite having tall. You know, he had his left tackle was Orlando Brown, who was 6'8", 300 pounds. You know, the son of Zeus Brown, former Raven. You know, so he has played with a NFL size offensive line, and yet he was still able to find the passing lanes, locate his receivers. You know, he shows anticipation and touch. He shows all that stuff. It's just a matter of there's the off-field concern. You know, that is he able to, be mature enough? I think that's.
Well, that's always my issue for a quarterback. Your quarterback's got to be a grown-up. I've learned that around here with Flacco as opposed to like Bowler or some others. And certainly, the Johnny football thing, I just would tend to avoid anyone who's not the most stable person at that position. And certainly, I can't see the Denver Broncos. I can't see John Elway looking at that kid and saying, I'm going to sign up for that. Literally.
Right, and that's why I don't think he's necessarily in play for the Giants at 2, just because John Mara, I know he's dealing with the whole Odell Beckham thing.
Yeah, Gettleman's trying to get rid of Odell Beckham already, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I don't know if he would end up fitting into that sort of, what the Giants are trying to build in the locker room. I mean, I don't think they trade Odell Beckham. I think they're still going to hold on to him, but just going forward, I think they're looking for a quarterback. They're looking for another Eli. They're looking for someone who
is a grown-up.
A grown-up, someone who doesn't lead necessarily with words, but with action.
He is Nick Klopsis. He does all things NFL draft. He is the original Draft Nick at Newsday Sports. You can find him out on the internet and, of course, at Newsday.com. I guess parting shot for you would be just, in general, this draft, the depth of it all. I know it's one of the things you do. Where is the depth going to be in this thing, 3rd, 4th, 5th round? Who are we going to hear coming off the board positionally where you can get a good positional player in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round?
I think running back is actually going to be one of the deepest classes. I mean, you talk about how this class doesn't necessarily have, not this class, but in general, running backs, you can always find them in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. I mean, you have a top guy in Saquon Barkley this year, but behind him, there's going to be a ton of guys that are going in that 2nd, 3rd, 4th round that are going to be immediate contributors. I mean, you look at a guy like Ronald Jones at a USC. He's fast, he's quick, he's shifty. You've got Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. Michel might end up being a first rounder himself, back into the first round.
Yeah, I'm seeing him mocked into the first round on almost every single one now.
Right, yeah, and then his teammate Nick Chubb, who's kind of more of the traditional power back. You know, he can kind of run it between the tags a little more. He might be a nice value pick in the mid-second round. You've got guys. I said Ronald Jones already. Kerryon Johnson out of Auburn. Rashad Penny, Kalen Ballage, guys that'll be available in that third round. Late day 2, maybe even early day 3. That bring that. Almost a discount version of that skill set that I was talking about with Barkley, where they can bring it on 3 downs. They can run the ball, they can catch the ball, they can pass protect. They might not do it overall at the quality that Barkley does, but they do it enough to be, warrant, regular NFL playing time. So I definitely think that there'll be guys. I don't know if there's going to be an Alvin Kamara type this year, but there's the fact that there's just going to be so many out there in that second, third round, maybe even the fourth round, that you'll definitely see someone, making some waves who was picked on the draft second or third day.
Yeah, Rashad Penny was the name I heard the most about, as well as Sony Michel. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. We know Saquon Barkley will be off the board. Eric DeCosta joked last week, if he's still there at 16, we'll take him. Nick, take care of yourself. It's always good to visit and draft up with you. Maybe we'll check in again after the draft. I'm sure the Cleveland Browns are going to win the draft again this year, right?
I'm sure again they will, just like they do every year. So
be well, man. Great having you on.
Thank you for having me, Nestor. Appreciate it.
You got it. The buyatoyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. You can listen from anywhere in the world like FM and Steely Dan. No static at all. Speaking of Steely Dan, Modell Lyric is our partner at WNST.net. They have the Wildcrats coming up this week at Sunday, 4:30 for the kids, the little PBS animation series there, the Wildcrats. That's a live show, and of course, lots of music down the line. Britt Floyd coming on the 26th, that's draft night, as well as Jackson Brown on May 3rd. Learn more at modell-lyric.com, out online, as well as anything that says Modell, we're digging it. But Steely Dan in Kansas coming this fall, along with a bunch of other shows, to do Modell Lyric, our new partner. Pizza John's has been our partner as well. 50 years now, they've been making pizza down in Essex. For those of you on the east side of town, you know what I'm talking about. It's been a little while. I'm making you hungry right now. You want to get down the back River Neck Road and check out all they do. Maybe get yourself a cheesesteak. I've been hankering a meatball sub down there for a while, but I can't stay away from the pizza. They got ice cream there now, too, and beer. It's my mom's favorite. It'll be your favorite as well. Pizza John's, back River Neck Road, doing it 50 years. Don't forget, each and every morning we deliver our WNST morning newspaper to your email inbox. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. We also put the Laurel entries in there. They have the Tessio coming up on the 21st, and of course, they're moving over to the Black Eyed Susan and the Preakness the day after Kentucky Derby. My wife and I are planning Derby Day there on May 5th as well. And the Maryland Jockey Club has their entries on the front of our website as well as a part of our morning newspaper, and that is powered up by Planet Fitness. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service, and that all comes to you courtesy of our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.